So today I'm pleased to have Antoinette Griffin. She's an executive coach, speaker, trainer, and facilitator, as well as a John Maxwell coach. Her company, Griff Development, provides coaching for business leaders and customized training for teams to excel in leadership, business building, confidence, and communication. Additionally, she works as an executive director and faculty member on the John Maxwell team, providing training support for over 33,000 coaches. She's also an instructor at the University of Texas Center for Professional Education. She's a graduate of the University of Texas, Hook'em Horns, and she is DISC certified. She recently moved from Austin to Atlanta, and I'm pleased to have her join us this morning. Antoinette, thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you so much, Craig. I have actually heard about Craig for many years, and so officially met him this morning. And I've known Elizabeth for many years via Toastmasters. Thank you, Elizabeth, for connecting me with this group. So no matter what changes you all have undergone during this time regarding jobs, regarding personal relationships, whatever, we are still making those first impressions with people, right? Sometimes it's like this, and it'd be interesting to know if any of you, and you can type in the chat if you want, if this is your first time to Job Seekers Network this morning, right, Craig? Because you might have some people that are attending for the very first time. But even if you come every week, you know that you're always making first impressions with those people that you have never met before. And when you think back, actually, Judy Lane said she is a first timer. Welcome, Judy. So all of you are making a first impression with Judy, and she is making a first impression with you, even though there's a lot of you staring back at me on the screen. Michelle, this is her second event, so I'm sure there's some people that you're still making first impressions with. When you think back to the people that you have worked with a long time or that you have known for a long time, most of the time you still remember the very first time that you met them. And you remember either it was a positive first impression or sometimes it wasn't so positive. And so the thing that we're going to talk about today is making those positive first impressions, because it is so important. You know, that quote that is probably most of you have heard, but it is so powerful. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So how many seconds or minutes do you think it takes to make a first impression? There's a lot of different stats out there, but there's one that is the most popular. So a couple people said 3, 5 to 7, 8, 7, 30, those are seconds. The most common first impression time it takes to make a first impression is 7 seconds. And so that's not a lot of time. And so the whole thing about this is how do we reinforce after that first impression versus overcome? That's pretty big, right? Because you have two choices. You can either make a good, authentic first impression and then you reinforce that over time, or it's not so good and you're having to overcome it. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me go ahead and get into a share screen here so we can go ahead and get started. The whole idea behind this is with first impressions, and I love this quote by Ann Damaris and Valerie White. Yes, others are only seeing a little sample of you, that little tiny sample, but that represents 100% of what they know about you. And so it's not all of you, but that's all they have to work with. And so what's going to happen is people are going to unconsciously assume that that first impression, that little sample, is an accurate representation of all of you. And as we know, that's not true. but it's still the case, right? We think back to those first impressions that we have had with other people, and how those first impressions do last for so long. And we think back to, okay, was that person did they have to overcome it, or were they reinforcing it? For those of you that are believers, Matthew 5:16, the Lord commands us to set a positive example before others. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So those first impressions are so important. And you only have that one opportunity to do it. So how are you using the opportunities that the Lord gives us? So I want to hear from you now. What kind of positive first impression do you want to make? What kind of positive first impression do you want to make? And I want you to either type that in chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, when you think about a descriptive word going, okay, this is the kind of first impression I want to make with other people. What is it? Just give me some words. Either unmute yourself or type that in chat. Elizabeth said she's got this, which I take as probably confident. Smile, eye contact, body language. We'll be talking about that. Happy, positive. And so I'd like to know what is positive. What's a positive first impression? One who listens and cares for others. Professional, Paul says professional. Judy says light. Paul says comforting. Brent says smile. Sharon says confident. And here's another confident. David says interested. Tana says capable. Jamat, approachable. Rachel, positive professional. Dawn, easy to get along with. Morgan, hard worker, very smart. Josette, positive and warm. Brent, giving. Okay, thank you. That was a lot. And some of those words, I think it is possible to do that in a first impression. Some of those, I think it's after you have gotten to know someone. It's some of those might be difficult to exhibit in those first 7 seconds. However, some of you, those words that you said are exactly some of the same things I was thinking. So let me go back and talk to you about some of the things that I'm going to talk about this morning. Confidence. Some of you talked about that. So thank you. Some of you said the exact word that I've got on my screen here. A confident first impression. Friendly. Some of you were talking about that. Warmth, that positive, which we associate with as friendly. What about trustworthy? Oh my goodness, if you were able to combine all of these 3 things in a first impression, that would be pretty cool. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is we're going to break down these 3 traits: confident, friendly, and trustworthy. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, okay, I've got to be my authentic me. I'm not about, faking it and being somebody who I'm not. Well, I hope that everybody who is here today is a friendly person, is a trustworthy person, and working on their confidence, because that's so important, especially in the job seeking world. To not only be working on our confidence in the job seeking world, but personally as well, because it's going to overflow. So I'm talking today all about authenticity. I'm not going to talk about different techniques. This is all about letting who you really are inside come out on the outside in those first impressions. This is from John Maxwell. Stephen Covey has said this too, but this is so important. And when you ingrain this in your mind on anything that you do, it really does change your life. It has changed mine. And that is to always remember, we judge ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by their actions. So therefore, we need to remember that others are always judging us by our actions. subconsciously. So for instance, I'm late to a job interview. So I am driving up on 183 and I'm cutting people off, and I'm really a nice person, but I'm late for a job interview. And so I got to get there on time. Those are my intentions. But all everybody else sees is I'm cutting them off. And so they're going, what a jerk driver. She's cutting everybody off. They're just judging me by my actions because that's all they have to go by. So I want you to keep this in mind when we break down these three things, because you may be working on your confidence, you may be working on your friendliness and your trustworthiness, but if it's not showing up in actions, then people don't see that within us, and that's how important it is. For those of you that are going, you know what, I do struggle with confidence, I really don't feel confident, I got a little secret for you, and that is nobody's as confident as they appear, okay? So just remember that when you're struggling and you're going, everybody looks like they're got it all together, everybody looks like they're so confident, nobody's as confident as they appear, okay? So just keep that in mind. So what do confident people do? What do confident people do as far as actions? Well, first of all, they show up, okay? So it took a level of confidence for you to actually come to this meeting this morning and show up. Confident people show up to those job interviews. Confident people show up to those networking meetings, those socials. They actually show up. But then a lot of you said eye contact. Eye contact is a good first impression, and eye contact is so important for people who are confident or who are displaying confidence. And so if you struggle with this, if this is something that that whenever you get nervous, like for instance, you're in a group of people that you don't know, or you're going to a job interview and eye contact is really difficult, this is something that really practice at, because eye contact is a sign of confidence. And be the first to give somebody eye contact. Don't, dart your eyes and wait and see if they're making eye contact with you. Show people that eye contact and initiate with that. Body language is congruent. Very, very important, because what happens when we get nervous, we tend to close up, we tend to slouch, we tend to get all of our gestures and everything get real small. And confident people have that larger, open body language. I want you to think about this. You're waiting in the lobby for a job interview. And what do we do? Normally when we're waiting, we actually, are staring at our cell phone. Well, it's kind of unnatural and uncommon to see someone with their cell phone here at eye level. Normally we're slouched over looking at our cell phone. So think about what kind of impression that makes. Somebody comes out to meet you, to bring you back for an interview, and the first thing they see is the top of your head because you're slouched over looking at your cell phone. So to remember in those situations, okay, I need to display confidence with my body language. So important. And one of the things that'll do, if you display it, then it'll help you to start feeling more confident on the inside. Dress is so important. I talk a lot about this in some of the classes that I do. Sometimes when we don't feel confident, that's when we tend to just dress to kind of blend in or underdress because we're not feeling good about ourselves. You probably have those certain things in your closet that when you wear, you feel more confident. So why are you not wearing those things? In one of my classes that I did at UT, there was a lady who said, you know what? I've got a closet full of blazers and they're really nice blazers, but She goes, I don't really feel confident enough to wear them. She said, I feel like, who am I to put on this blazer? Because I feel like I'm going to be faking it. I feel like people are going to see through me. And once I worked with her and she understood that importance of dress, that it just helps give you that boost of confidence, it really worked for her. She was like, you know what? I'm going to put on the clothes and then therefore I'm going to feel it. It's, once again, it's not about faking it. It's, compare it to the gym. Well, I really don't feel like going out, working out this morning. So I don't think I'm going to do it, because it would be faking it to go to the gym when I really don't feel like it. That's not what we do, right? We go to the gym even when we don't feel like it. And then we come out afterwards going, okay, that was good. Have you ever gone to the gym and then regretted it afterwards? Probably not. You're probably pretty proud of yourself, or gone for a run or gone for a walk. So think of it as that same thing. You do it before you feel it, and then afterwards you're going to feel it. And then confident people take the initiative. So anything from, like I said, that eye contact, the facial expressions, and we're going to get into that in a minute. And that is, extending that yourself for an introduction. I paused there because, usually I'm talking about shaking hands, and all of that is changing now. So, but still, to be able to introduce yourself whenever you meet somebody, rather than having them to take the initiative. So taking the initiative shows confidence. So next is friendly. So what do friendly people do? What do friendly people do? Well, they show up as well. They also have eye contact. You all are in the South. You all are in the Austin area. If some of you lived in different parts of the world, or maybe some of you lived up in the North, specifically like the Northeast, eye contact, as you know, having lived in Austin, especially if you're new to the South, you see a difference there, in that eye contact shows friendliness. So although it was certainly even more than acceptable in some places of the US and in some places of the world to not initiate eye contact, in the South, it is seen as very confident, it is seen as very friendly, and as we'll get into in a minute, very trustworthy as well. And then the smile. The reason why I put this on friendly versus confident is because we all do know confident people who don't smile, and confident people who appear very confident, but who don't have that warm facial expressions. And that's why the combination of all three of these in a first impression is important. So here's the thing, and I have worked with people a lot on this, because you got two different kinds of people who, with the smile thing for first impressions, struggle with. You have the introverts like myself. I am an introvert, and sometimes with introverts, we're thinking about things, and so we're in our heads, and so for a first impression, we have our thinking face on, or we're not smiling, we're not having that warm facial expressions with another person, because we're not even thinking about it, so we're not aware of it. But then there's also some people who are really shy and nervous in those first impressions. And so what's happening with them is they want to smile, but they're nervous. And so their jaw tends to tighten up. And so they get this game, what I call game face on, that really portrays like they don't want to engage with people when they really do. It's just that they're not aware of it. And so their mouth tightens up a lot. And so my advice to people like this, if you tend to be one of those that you have that thinking face, just to remember to be so conscious of it whenever you're making a first impression with someone, that it's so important, especially on video. And we're going to get to that in a few minutes. And also if you're, for instance, going to a job interview and they come and greet you and you are feeling nervous, just to relax your jaw. And it'll keep you from tightening up your mouth and having that serious, that game face facial expression. Doesn't mean you have to go around like this all the time, but just having that relaxed facial expression just by relaxing your jaw. Friendly people also take the initiative, right? We know that from everything from social encounters to when you're visiting a church. So many times we say, oh, well, that church was friendly. Well, why was that church friendly? It was probably because somebody came up and took the initiative and introduced themselves to us. And so it's so important to show that you're friendly by taking the initiative. But how many of you are really friendly people, but you're waiting for the other person to do it? One of my clients, she had just started a job, and I talked to her first week, and I said, well, how was it? And she said, well, the people weren't very friendly there. And I said, well, like, what happened? And she said, well, I was in the break room and there were a couple of people that walked in the break room, and she said, they didn't say anything to me. They didn't introduce themselves. And I said, well, why didn't you take the initiative with them? And she said, because I'm the new person. They need to go first. That's great, but it doesn't always happen, right? Sometimes you got to go first, even when you're the new person. And so by taking the initiative, you're going to show that you are confident. You're going to show that you are friendly. And then what else does a friendly person do? It makes those other people feel welcomed, feel included. Once again, by taking the initiative or bringing them into a conversation. We all like that, and we all associate that with friendliness. So what does a trustworthy person do? You got your confident person, you have your friendly person. What does a trustworthy person do? Of course, they show up. You think about it, if there's a financial advisor who comes to a networking meeting and comes one time and is like, hey, I do investments and I help people get their finances in order, and you never see that person again, you're probably not going to go, oh, let me sign up. Trustworthy people show up consistently and they keep showing up. That's one of the things that creates trust with people. You continuing to come to Job Seekers Network, showing up, is going to create trustworthiness with the other people in this group. Trustworthy people also make eye contact. So once again, if you struggle with this, if you struggle with the averting your eyes or looking down a lot or not wanting to make eye contact with people, are feeling uncomfortable making eye contact with people, know that it's one of those things that either breaks trust, or it's difficult to build trust, or if you're really good at it, then it does create trust. So notice I'm trying to do this with you all right now. Y'all's pictures are down here, but what I'm trying to do is look directly in the camera because I want to have that eye contact. Body language being congruent with whatever the person is saying is so important with trust. And we're going to get more into body language next week because we're going to talk about how to really deepen those connections with people beyond that first 7 seconds. But trustworthy people do create more of that congruent body language rather than what they're saying is different from what they are doing with their bodies. And then, of course, making other people feel welcome, included, and exhibiting presence. They're trustworthy people are present with those people that they're talking to, and they can start creating that within 7 seconds, but then continuing that on in deeper connections to really, really be present with people. Because as you probably realize, the people in your life who have that really deep connection and deep presence when they're with you are probably the people that you trust the most. So we're going to be talking about that next week as well. So hopefully you're a friendly person. Hopefully you're a trustworthy person. Hopefully you're working on your confidence. But so many times we have these barriers to making a good first impression that we do not even realize. And I talked about some of these. Talked about the phone. So many times we are staring at our phone and it becomes this security blanket. It becomes this pacifier whenever we're at a networking event and we don't know someone, or we don't know anybody, or we're once again waiting in that room for them to come get us at a job interview, and we don't know what to do, and it feels a little awkward, so we don't even think about it, and we grab our phone, and what happens is it becomes this barrier between us and everybody else in the room. And like I said, it also causes us to look down and not make eye contact. Another one that can be a barrier is to a first impression is when you're with your comfortable group, and you have, if it's a in-person session, you got this closed circle, and you're not making other people feel welcome. You're not greeting other people with eye contact because you're so busy with the people that you just feel comfortable with. So you're not making a good first impression on other people because you're not really even aware of the other people. And this can happen on video as well. Say for instance, if there's a y'all are having a kind of a networking virtual meeting, and you just are communicating and making eye contact with those people on the screen that you know really well. It can be something that you don't think about, that you're not even aware of, but you are not making a good first impression on those people that do not know you. Another one is that facial expression and that body language. It's so important, and it's something that's so common. If any of you have ever been told, oh, so many times you look like you're ticked off, or you look like you're mad, or you're uncomfortable, then rather than get defensive or make excuses for that, think back to go, oh, what is my facial expression? And hey, it's okay. None of us are perfect with this. I was doing a training with my husband, John, just a couple months ago, and it was an in-person training that was before, so it was pre-COVID, and we were taking turns presenting. And so he was presenting, and so I was thinking about the next thing that I was going to do in the presentation. And when we left that day, he said, hey, when I was up presenting, he said, was everything okay? And I said, yeah, why? And he said, because you got this look on your face like you did not like what I was saying. And I said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I was sitting there thinking about the next thing I was doing, but yet he was reading it. And we're married, and we've been married almost 25 years. So think about how our expressions, oh my gosh, just carry such weight. And think about how much even more weight they carry in a first impression. And then this next one is movement. And this, we don't really do this on video, but how many times are we moving so quickly if it is one of those situations where we're at a networking group, or we're at church, or we're in some kind of situation where we're moving so quickly. And sometimes you need to because you're in a rush. But some of us, like myself, are more task oriented. And so I'm just thinking about the next thing that I need to do. And so we're moving at a quick rate. John Maxwell says, walk slowly through the crowd. Walk slowly through the crowd. I have that on my office wall because it's something that I have to remember, because that's when you're going to have those connections with people, is when you slow down. And then for some of you, you're walking quickly because it's a situation where you're nervous, like you're at a networking meeting or a social, or you're visiting a new church or something like that. And you're walking so quickly because you don't want to call attention to yourself and or look like you don't know what you're doing or where you're going. But what happens is the impression you're giving is you're too busy for everybody else. The virtual world. Now we're in the virtual world, and some of this stuff goes even deeper in the virtual world. Now, I know some of you have your video off for a reason this morning. Maybe it's like it's early where you're at, or you are in transit, or you can't have, it's not practical to have your video on. However, in those situations where you're like, you know what, do I have my video off or do I have my video on? And it's just a choice. I want to challenge you to get into the habit of putting your video on, even if it means, hey, I got to take 10 extra minutes and I got to go put some makeup on, or I got to go put a dress shirt on, or I got to go, make myself presentable, or even my background presentable. Because what happens is with your video on, what's happening? You're showing up. And so you're creating that trustworthiness. You're building it. You're creating that friendliness. You're creating a confidence because people are seeing you, and people are going to engage with you more when you have your video on. It is so easy to overlook people when they have their video off. It's so easy because, once again, we're not seeing your faces, but then also we don't know, well, is this person really engaged in the call or not? You may be 100% engaged, but without your video on, the rest of the people do not know that. And of course, I know you all are on mute this morning because there's a lot of you. However, we're in those smaller meetings where, hey, get off mute, ask a question, make a comment, greet people whenever you're on a virtual call, because that's all that people really have to go by. Just like with me, all you're seeing is, my shoulders and up. So I have to be ultra cognizant of, what are my facial expressions doing? What's my eye contact doing? I can put my hands up here, but I can do all these gestures down here and you don't even see it. So how many times, do you see people on video and they're, what is that, right? And I know it does take effort. But here's another thing, and I've had to learn myself this in this post-COVID world, is, I've got my notes and I've put them on I had to buy a little stand. I had to buy a little stand that is over here with my notes, but I want them at eye level, because what I was finding when I would go back and review my videos, I would have my notes down here and I would go refer to my notes, and all everybody could see was the top of my head. So it's not a real confident body language there. So be real cognizant of how you're coming across in video. We judge ourselves by our intentions. So our intentions may be great, but others are judging us by our actions. So I want you to remember that. So I want you to just kind of do a grade for yourself. How confident do you feel like you're appearing? How friendly are you appearing? How trustworthy are you appearing? And the reason why I'm saying appearing, rather than, well, I feel like I'm being this way, but it all comes down to the perception of others in a first impression. So once again, you may be the friendliest person on the inside, but if it's not appearing that way on the outside, then that's where there is some disconnect, which is so important. So here's my challenge for you. What do you need to do to make a good, positive first impression? And I'm going to come back to share screen in a couple minutes, because I've only got a couple more minutes, but I'm going to do stop share now. And I want you to either type it into chat, or I want you to unmute yourself. What's something that you need to do to ensure that you're making a positive impression?
I think mine is just making good eye contact with the camera when it's virtual.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, because that's something we have to learn, right? Yeah, it's totally different with virtual. Thank you. Thanks, Rachel. Jeff said, always look at the camera. David, smile. Sharon, check my office background. Oh, I know what you mean. I've got a virtual background, which I absolutely love my virtual background right now, but it was so funny. The other day, I did one without a virtual background, and I was at the house, and the night before I had used the vacuum cleaner and I had left it out because I hadn't finished vacuuming. And oh my gosh, I went back and looked at my video and I'm like, there was a vacuum cleaner in the background. Oh my goodness. I'm glad I was on a small group that I was reporting to. Tana,
Yeah, this is, oh, go ahead.
Lisa, don't look down at notes. Keep them at eye level. Yes, so important. And somebody was chiming in.
Yeah, this is Jeff Mitchell. Hi, y'all. I went through a LinkedIn training last week on virtual interviews, and I've led some. We got a Bible study, and I've led it through the first part of this year. We're on a summer break, and we use Zoom, and I took some training with that too, to be looking at the camera, be smiling, be engaging, not be looking around elsewhere, especially when you're leading. But they had said when you're doing a virtual interview that have always, if you're in a room with a light, with a window, always be facing the window to give you good natural light. Have a lamp behind you that isn't really bright, but to give you some depth, and don't be right near the lamp. Have some depth between the camera and you, and a lamp or a table with maybe like a plant or something on it to give it some depth. And they talked about choosing neutral wall colors, and of course, a color that you're confident in wearing that accentuates, your complexion, or just makes you look, good in that light. And actually did that last week, and I could tell that the person who was interviewing me, it kind of put them at ease. It was and it by no means by the way I look, but I think it just gave him a sense of comfort, because there was it was just a comfortable view of me, because I wasn't cluttered. I wasn't, I didn't have a bunch of books behind me, or, just a disorganized area, or didn't look like I was sitting in a bathroom or something. I don't know, something like that.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, and that stuff is so important, isn't it? It really is. And like you said, even the colors, oh my gosh, because I do videos for my YouTube channel, and like some things I'll wear, I'm like, oh my gosh, that color just totally washes me out. And then another color, will really help my complexion and stuff. So it really does make a huge difference. Thank you, Jeff. Sharon said, are virtual backgrounds okay? I think they totally are. I wouldn't for a job interview do a beach background, but like, for instance, the background that I have, which is an office background, and the one that I have is through the John Maxwell team, but it's so interesting because my husband and I, we were in separate rooms meeting with one of our clients, and our client said, oh my gosh, are you guys at the John Maxwell office? That is so cool. I mean, he thought we were really at the office. So definitely a professional background if you're using a virtual one. How do you ensure confidence, not arrogance? Thank you, Elizabeth. So I actually did a video on this, the difference, how to tell the difference between confidence and without being cocky. And it really is all about the way that you're coming across. Are you coming across confidently to help the other person feel at ease and to be focused on the other person? Or is it all about, oh, I'm trying to do this just to make myself look good? And so that's really the difference is, are you focused on the other person? Yes, you want to make a good impression, but is it about the other person too, or is it all about puffing up myself? Okay, so a couple more comments. Close the door so you're not distracted. Yes, so some of you talked about your thinking face. Totally get that. And it's something to be so aware of, so aware of. So lastly, and I'm coming back next week. So I just want to let you all know. And so I talked with Craig and Madeline, so I'll be back for the 10 o'clock. We'll be doing a whole hour. And next week, it's about those deeper connections. So we'll be talking more about body language. We'll be talking about how to really listen without distractions, and then getting to questions to deepen a conversation. So what I've done now is, this is my last slide. You have the choice if you want. I've got a list of interview questions that I've come up with, if you would like that. And then next week, we're going to be talking about connection, but I also have a list of how to get to deeper conversations with people. And then I also do a new e-newsletter on confidence and charisma. And then, of course, as Craig said, I do coaching. So if you're interested in a coaching consultation. So if you're interested in any of those, you can either do, put your phone up into the QR code, or you can go to AntoinetteGriffin.com. If the QR code kind of freaks you out, you can do that. And what it's going to do is it's going to take you to an Eventbrite page, and then you can just select which one of those that you want, if any. That's just if you're interested in staying connected. It does have a date on there because it's an Eventbrite page, but just ignore the date. I just did that through the end of next week, since I'm going to be coming back next week. And once again, all these things are free. So if you're interested in any or all, a combination, just go ahead and go there. So Craig, it's my stopping time, correct?
Yes, thank you so much. And we look forward to
Okay.
having you back at 10 o'clock next week. It'll be
Thank
great to get
you.
a full hour. And
Great.
so she'll be available. Again, go to her website that she mentioned and check out the other offerings she's got, the interview questions and so forth. And so it's great to have you back next week from Atlanta, Georgia.
And Craig, before I sign off, in case any of y'all have some things that you want me to address next week regarding those deep how to form deeper connections, I put my email on there. So if you want to email me, then you can certainly do that. And if it's within the scope and we have time, then I'll address that as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.